All right, so the lab today, it's called the Cow Says, and this is a kind of silly name, but the main thing that we're trying to learn more about is how to use the command line. So I don't know if any of you have any experience in the command line, but when we've done our labs in the past, we would usually do something like, we would say variable and then we would say equal to and then input, right? So if we look here, if I pull up a debugger, we can look at what's going on. So we used to do stuff like this, right? We used to say like, test variable equals input, and then we would say like enter and input. So stuff like this. This is the command line where when we are able to type in commands. So when you type in an input here, you're actually typing into this command line. Now, this is a little bit, you know, this is a little bit easier to understand, but what about if you want to write a program that takes in different arguments? So for example, your program like starts out when you run it, it's pretty easy when you are able to just click play and then type things in. But what if you want to run things without or what if you want to input stuff without having to enter it in manually? Well, we can use this thing. Um, we can use some of our information that we're going to learn here about the command line and try and take in arguments from when you start running. So, for example, when you run a file in Python or in anything, so let's say, I don't know if I can pull up a terminal here, but I might just write a comment here. Like, if I wanted to run a file in Python on my computer, I would say Python and then maybe the version is 3, so Python 3, and then I would say like the file name. So I would say file.py, and if you run this in a command terminal or a command prompt on Windows, it'll run the file. Now, if you want your file to do specific things based on some certain input, you can add arguments, such as like, let's put numbers. So let's say that there's 3 arguments. I can type in when I'm executing the whole file, I can put in some certain amount of arguments, and this will be used by this program here. We don't know what it is used for, but somehow we need to be able to read these numbers or maybe a string. Maybe we want to read this string and then use it somehow here. And of course, these are very easily changeable. So we're going to do this lab that will kind of take these concepts and combine it all into a program that you run, but it has some degree of modifiability where you can change things in your arguments. So this lab is it's probably good to use. I mean, here it says it's good to use a text editor and a terminal. So I'll share like my entire screen so I can actually pull this whole thing up. So let's do this. So I think now my whole screen should be shared. So you can use whatever you want, really. I would say when you use PyCharm, for example, you'll always see things like this. You'll see a play button here, or when I was using the online text editor here, I was able to just click run, and all I had to do that was just click this, green play button. But this isn't really what we want to do. We want to we want to execute our Python file in the command line. So I can do an example of this. So let me pull up my PyCharm. Let me just create a new file. That's possible. So actually, no. New Python file. I'll just say test.py. So let's say I want to run this Python file. I don't want to click play like this because while this technically works, you can actually see that when you click play, it does something. So it's calling some commands. And you can actually do this yourself by writing it in the terminal. So in PyCharm, you can click on terminal here and you can do this. So you can do Python or Python 3. I think my version is just on Python. So you can test which one it is. If you type in Python dash version dash dash version, and it shows your Python version, then you're good. But I think we're supposed to use Python 3. I don't think it really matters. I can use Python or Python 3. But you start by writing the name of the application. Python is an application. Python as an application takes in an argument, and the argument that you want to put in is the file name. So given that I'm in the right folder, so I have a folder here called COP3502C, and you can see that I'm in that folder here, and any of these files within that folder, this overall folder, I can access from here. Well, I'll just check on this. Give me one second. So anything that's inside of this folder here, COP3502C, I can access. There's actually a command that you can do to see what where you are in your terminal. So if I do pwd, this means print working directory, and this will tell you the path where you are. It's basically right now this terminal is located somewhere, and when you do commands, it does commands in that specific folder, or what we call directory. And to see what you're in, what directory you're in, you can type in ls, which is will show you every single file you've got inside of that directory. And in this directory is my COP3502C folder. And so anything that's in here, I can run. So Python will take in the argument of a Python file, so .py. So what you'll do is you'll just type in the Python file you want to run, and that's it. So this command is going to execute the application Python, and the application Python will take in the file name. It'll look for the file, which since you're in the right folder, it knows that it's this specific file that I just made, and then it'll try and run it. So let's try that. So Python 3 test.py, it ran hello world, and I didn't have to click the play. But we can obviously extend this by adding more arguments. And for example, what if I wanted to use this? I'm not going to actually do it. Yeah, I'll show you this in a second. But what if we had an argument, or we wanted to just say, print argument. Argument is a variable, and that argument came from here. So test.py, we would add our argument. So what if we wanted to print out exactly what we type in here? Whatever's written here will be passed into the actual file and then be run through some method that we're going to discuss in a second. So let's do that. So if you want to learn more about how to use the shell, there's a lesson here. I think I might make a short video for everyone, because as you get on with if you guys are computer science majors or computer engineering, this is a very important topic that you'll use. You can use it to manage and traverse your computer much faster, make folders, basically learning more about how the computer works as a whole, but that's not really what we're looking for right now. So I'll try to make that separate. But here it says you're allowed to use PyCharm in its terminal. It doesn't really matter. The main thing that we're trying to emphasize with this using a text editor is that if I, take an application here, so if I take a notepad here and I name this something, if I, say print hello world, and this is just a random notepad editor, if I save it and I don't know, I just save it as test.py in my desktop, it will create a Python file somewhere, and I could use my command prompt or my terminal. So if I want to, execute that file that I just made, not even using any code editor, nothing. I'm going to try and find where it is. Actually, let me try and use PowerShell. So I'm going to use Windows PowerShell for this. I think this should work. So I'm going to figure out where do I need to go. Well, I know I made it in my desktop folder, so I'm going to go there. So CD, meaning change directory, I'm going to go to that specific location. So now you can see that this line has changed. So I'm in the desktop. I'm going to see now, where am I? So I'm going to say ls again. And I can see test.py is right here, the one that I just made in here. And you can see that it matches with the directory. So I can actually do the same thing, Python 3 test.py, and it says hello world. And that's because Python as an application, which if you actually write Python inside of your search, you'll actually see that when you click on Python, it's just an application that you can run, and it does some stuff here. I can write Python commands, but when you submit a Python file as an argument, it will put all of the text that you've written here. So for example, I wrote print hello world. You'll take the text inside that file, send it through the application, print it out, or do whatever the application is supposed to do, and then it'll give you your output. And that's just a more general idea of how Python is actually working when you're running it on your computer. So anyways, so that's what we mean by it. You can use a notepad. It doesn't really matter, but just so that you can actually see why this is useful. You can run Python files anywhere as long as you know where the location is. You don't even need PyCharm as long as you have Python installed. So the first thing that you're going to do is use the terminal to actually make your lab file system. So I'll do this live so you can actually see what we're trying to achieve here. So let me pull up a new terminal. So what do we want to do? We want to put our lab somewhere on our computer. I don't know where I want to put it. Maybe I'm going to say, well, I'm going to go to my desktop. You could technically, find here and click new folder, but we're not going to do that. All right, we're going to do this in a more robust manner. We're going to do it all via text. So I'm going to go to my desktop location, and I'm going to see what I've got here. Well, I've got a bunch of folders. Great. What if I want to make a new folder? Well, I'm going to type in mkdir, means make directory, and directory meaning folder. And I'm going to name it, seems like cow lab. So I'm going to say cow lab. And there we go. You see that it has made a folder. And now if I actually, say ls to show what I've got here, where is it? Cow lab folder is here. And it says D for directory. So we know that we did it correctly. And now we need to make sure that we want to make some files, but we want to make them in our new folder that we just created. So we're going to need a change directory and then go to the cow lab. And when I click tab there, it auto completes as long as you type in a couple of the first letters. So I'm going to click CD, enter. And now you can see that we've changed directories, and I can confirm this by doing pwd, print working directory. We are in the cow lab folder. And it says do your lab work in that folder. So, a good command that you could use, I think, is touch. Actually, no, I don't know what it is. I think that's a Linux command. So maybe you can use that. I think this one was saying Unix shell, but I think that we can see how to touch file in PowerShell. We can, you can just search stuff up like this. There might be information like this saying like how to create a file. And so, I'll search up here and it seems like, oh, you can just do this. And, you can try it out for yourself, see if it actually works. But yeah, I mean, we can try this out now. So echo. Actually, I don't know if this is for, yeah, this is for PowerShell. And then let's see, did it actually work? Well, it seems like there is a test.python file. So, that's one way that you can figure out how to learn new commands on the command line. Because honestly, when I first started, I didn't know anything. But once you start to get more experience, just try it out more. You'll see that it does make working a lot easier because you don't have to drag files. You can just type it all in, move around your computer, and it's actually quite simple. Because now, using some of the skills that I know now, I could probably, edit the file right here. Actually, no, that's Linux. Never mind. All right, well, we're not going to do that then. We're just going to continue. I'm used to using a Mac base. So Mac and Linux, they have a different terminal, which is a Unix-based shell. So the commands will be different. Um, I'm not exactly sure why we're using a Linux shell as the explanation when I know that many of you are going to be using um, Windows PowerShell. But there are ways to get a Unix shell on your Windows. So for example, you can, go on the Microsoft Store and type in, this. You can type in Ubuntu, and you can get a Linux terminal on your Windows, which I like to use. It has its own commands. I find it a little bit easier to use. So there's different things that you can do, but you don't need to go this far. It's just something that's an option. I would definitely suggest looking more into it, but that's all I'm really going to say about that. There's just, evidently all of this information here that we've got is based on the Linux command prompt thing. So, if you want to do that, I would say search into this thing called WSL, which is just installing Linux on Windows. But you can also just do it by going and searching Ubuntu in the Windows Store, and it's free. So, anyways, we're going to actually talk about the lab specifications now. I did not mean to do that. So, what we're going to do now is just talk about the functions that we're going to need to make. Well, actually, why don't we just look and see what this file is supposed to do? We can just look at the output samples. So, as I was saying before, we're going to run a file. So we're going to use Python as an application to run some certain file called cowsay.py. So because this is our file that we're passing in to the application, I'm going to assume that our main function, whatever it might be, is going to be located in this. So everything will probably want to work. Everything that we'll do will probably want to be inside of cowsay.py. It seems like the rest of this information seems to be a string that is then used and then outputted on top. So there's the string that you passed in, it looks like, and then there's like an image, and it looks like this image is generated somehow by the actual, I think by a provided file that you'll get. And we can look here, another example. So you can do, the same file. Seems like you can pass in something, -n. These are usually called flags. So if you wanted to, specify your command. So I don't know, let's say, oh, I don't know what just happened. Yeah, I don't think that's really important. I don't know why that happened, my bad. But yeah, these flags are to specify like if you want to modify how a function operates. Or for example, maybe this -n means, a different type of animal or different type of format for writing things out. And you can see how this works on the command line here. So if I type in ls, for example, on Windows PowerShell, I can actually see what I've got here. But you can type in, ls -help, and -help is its own flag, which, or I guess maybe -h would work. I guess that didn't work actually. Let's see. Let's see if we can figure out one that works. Oh no, let's see. Maybe that's does ls not have them? Let's see. Yeah, okay, so I guess there's no flags there seemingly, but usually you can pass things in. I don't know why this happened. Maybe I need to do it on the Linux terminal. Let me try this. Sorry about that. see if I can get it to work here. So if I type in ls, this ls command, maybe if I type in dash help, yeah, so I pass in a flag dash dash help and it spits out a bunch of information. In this case, I ask for help, so it's going to give me some certain thing based on whatever flag I put. And it seems like the dash help shows me every flag that I can do. So if I put dash A, I can list whatever. I can list everything. It says do not ignore entries starting with dot. I can list G stuff with, no group. I don't know. I mean, it's just anything that you want. List all the directories. So list dash D, list directory. So let's try it. Let's see if I can do like list dash A and see what happens. So ls dash A. Yeah, so it shows me everything with all these dots in front of it. Because usually I think in Linux, the dots mean like don't show it or hide it, right? So these flags are kind of what you're seeing here. Now, it looks like this next argument appears to be a name of an animal, the kitten. So what I'm assuming is the dash n means, look at what the name is of the animal, because here you can see that we we don't have any name of this dog or goat. It looks like a goat. But here with the dash n, you can see that they seem to be specifying the type of animal you want. So when you see dash n, probably means look for the next word and see, what type of animal it is, and then we're going to print out that type of animal. And then right after the animal name, we just have a string, and that string is printed out. Yeah, so seems like dash n, yeah, does mean a name. But if the animal or thing doesn't exist, then you print out could not find and then the name of the thing that you typed in. And cow. Last one, Python 3 cowsay.py dash L. So remember, this is a dash L. I think when I did this, I thought it was a dash one or something. I was really frustrated, but dash L appears to be like dash list. So list every cow available. So I don't know what a heifer is, but maybe there's some information about this. Oh, cow. Yeah, so it's this type of cow. I don't know what a heifer is. I guess it's a female cow. Anyways, that's just one of the types of cows, and apparently a kiddet is a type of cow. But that's beside the point. This is kind of what we're trying to do, and we're going to try and implement it using the command line. So let's do this. So let me go back to just sharing this specific window. Okay, so you're going to write two different files, a driver file, meaning the file with the main function, and it's going to be in cowsay.py. And of course, we looked at that. We know that that's what we want to be working on. And a data class, cow.py. So heifer generator, heifer is just the name of the cow. It comes from this question up here, I think, on Wikipedia. I think that's just the name that we're using, but it's just a cow generator. And I think that this is going to be used for creating our actual cow pictures. And you can download this on the assignment page. So this Python file, heifer generator, has a function called get cows. So it just says it returns a Python list of cow objects. So what does this mean? It means that it's probably going to create a cow object based on your cow class. So I think that you're going to make the data class, right? And this data class is going to have all the information about a cow, like, what is its name? I don't know what other stuff. I guess we'll see it below. But this get cows will generate all of your cows for the specific thing that you're trying to do. And it probably has more information about the actual picture of the cow. The main function, it says that it's going to accept command line arguments, as we were looking at before. It says command line arguments are captured as part of the argv variable found in the sys module. So I'm gonna, I can't actually, let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can just change this. So the sys module, meaning system, let's see, what is this? What is a system module? So sys module Python. So the sys module provides functions and variables that are used to manipulate different parts of the Python runtime. So it seems like it's used to like access the actual operating system. So I don't know if there's any good examples here. Yeah, so when you use system import sys, you can use sys, and then there's a few functions I'm sure that it's got that will allow you to um, I don't know, work with the environment that it's in. So for example, if you're in a terminal, you can say dot exit, or you could maybe even use it to like, do the thing like click the X here, stuff like that. So interact with things outside of the Python file. So let's see. So we can see what is the argv variable. So argv variable sys here. Maybe this will explain. This is a good way to, learn more about how things work. So sys.argv, it says command line arguments are da da da. It says the first element of the array, sys.argv, is the name of the program itself. So it seems like when you call a function with the command line, so for example, you type in Python 3, test.py, it will give you a list of everything that you typed in. So let's see. So if I typed in Python 3, test.py, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when I access sys.argv in this manner, what it's going to do is it's going to print out an array containing all of this information. And it specifically says that the first, where is it? The first argument or the first element of this array is the name of the program itself. So the first argument here would be this. And so if we wanted to access these arguments here, like, and which are separated by spaces, right? We would say, oh, sys.argv 1, right? Because this is the 0th element, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And it's just like accessing any array. And you don't need to instantiate this array. It's already, inherently located when you import the sys module because you're inputting it in the command prompt. And I guess you can use functions like these to see like how long is our string. For example, if you don't know how long a string or how many arguments they might put, like what if they put 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can use a function like the length function to see, well, how many did they put? And of course you would do subtract 1 because you want to get, you don't want to include the name of the file. So we're going to use this to actually access those things that we type in. And then there's a few different things that we want to, implement. We want to implement a case where if they type in -L, it lists all of the cows. So you'll want to do a few if statements. Check, well, is your first argument sys.argv1, is it -L? Yes, do something. If not, move on. If it's not that, do a message, or maybe check, is it -N? Then, do whatever else it specifies here. And then finally, if it's not none of those, then, print out the message using, it says default cow and specified cow. So those cows can be specified. So I guess there's going to be different types of cows. And if if the user calls for a cow that doesn't exist, I guess when they try and specify -N and then the cow name, you should print out could not find and then this cow name cow. There's a few different functions that you might want to implement, listing the cows, find cows. This isn't really that important, but you can do this just for, helping yourself work with arrays. It's not too important, but I think the first place to start would be here on your cow.py. So what you're going to want to do is create your cow class. And I think that we've got a template for this, but this cow class will initialize a cow. So just initialize it with the name. So if you remember from class, if you pass in a name, this is going to be the constructor of our class. And we're going to say that this cow class should have a variable, that specifies that when you create the cow, you would put parentheses, and say like, oh, cow parentheses, and then you put the name of the cow, and then it should, instantiate the the cow's local variable to be that name. Um, Get name is just a getter, so it just returns the name of the cow. You shouldn't be able to reset the name of the cow, so no setter. Get image, so just returns the image. So there should be a specific type of image of the cow that's already located. I can't remember if this is in the heifer generator or the cow in the provided cow file, cow.py file, but I'm not sure. It should be in one of the two. And then set image. So this one is going to actually take an image, which I think will be located in an array. And you're going to just take in that, you know, that image and then reset or set that specific cow's image display. So for example, if seems like there's two different types right now. There's this cow and then there's this cat. And so these images will probably be stored like this in an array. And you're going to say like, oh, if they named it uh, Kite, then you're going to put this this image, which I think will be located in an array with this image. So maybe this is the first element, this is the second element. So you'll just put the second element of that array as your image, and you'll set that as the image. So that's the main thing you want to do. And I can try and pull up the actual document or the actual files that we've got. So give me 1 second. Actually, trying to see if I can get everything. I don't actually have the main page open, so I need to get that open. Are there any questions about what we're trying to do so far? Seems like you're all okay. Okay. Yeah, so there's this file, hyper generator, which I've got up here. So hyper generator, it's going to use your cow class. So this is why I say like work on the cow class first because it's relatively easy. Um, but this is basically how it's going to work. It has the cow names here. There's only two different types. It's got the lines here for the speech bubble or whatever, and it has the images. And if you pass in like I think that if you specify which cow you want, then you'll be able to access whichever one um, you're supposed to use. So I think right now this one will return cows, which I think separates each of these. I think it handles it all for you, but I think it separates this and this. So when it returns the cows array, it'll give you an array of those two different images, the ones that you want. And that's all it really does. But of course, it then does associate that cow that you created. It'll use your constructor here and it'll name it whichever one, and then it'll set the image to the one that you want. So you're going to need to first implement the cow.py file first, or else this will not work. But you don't have to worry too much about these images being generated because they're already here for you. Just don't modify any of this. Make sure to just set all of your things properly, like set the image setter properly, which I believe is specified here. So set image, that's the one that you need mainly so that you can actually create your cow. These are very, very easy functions. It's just setting a name, getting a name, getting an image, setting an image. So it's not, there isn't too much implementation you need. All right, are there any questions about this so far? And if not, then I'll be here for maybe 5, 10 minutes and then we'll discuss. All right, hold on. So confused about the part between where we use the terminal and what we actually need to do. So when, the main thing about this assignment is that you don't need to program anything in the terminal. So you need to be able to access things from the terminal. So for example, if I type things in here, as I was saying, like if I ran, I don't know if you can see this actually. Let me just make sure. Yeah, it seems like I am sharing. So,
I think I might now. Second. When you actually like type in this Cowsay.py, it's going to need to figure out like, did I type in dash L? And if I typed in dash L, then I would need to, actually do something different in my Python file. So let's say that I did this here. Let's say that in this test file, I'm going to try and, see what's going on. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import the system module so that we can actually start to read some of this stuff here. Let's see how this actually works. Let's print out sys.argv. And let's just see what happens. So let's run our test.py. And I'm just going to say dash L. Or maybe I guess, just some random letters. And I'll just put in my name. And let's see if this actually works. So what you'll see here is that using this module, when I print out this array, it actually split up every single thing that we typed in on this line. And first argument again is the name of the file as we expected. The second argument is whatever the second thing I typed in, and then it splits up every other word. In this case, our file wants to do something like this. Well, if they type in dash L as the second argument, right? Like as this argument, then it's supposed to do something. So let's say, okay, if arg or if sys.argv, and then I'm gonna use the index accessor things. So I'm not gonna start at 0. I'm gonna start at 1 because of course index 0 is this file name. If it's equal to, and I think this should work. If it's equal to dash L, then print successfully detected dash L. I mean, you'll have to do something. It says you'll have to list out the cows, but let's just see if this works. So, and then else print, okay, it's auto completing for me. So failed to detect dash L. Let's try this out. So I'm going to save it. Okay, I didn't do that. Let me clear this out. Let's do Python 3 test.py. And then I'm just going to put dash A. So failed to detect dash L. What if I actually do dash L? So it successfully detected it. So because I typed in, something that I'm checking for here, well, it'll run whatever's inside this if statement. And that's kind of what we want to do. If you look at the actual functions here, it specifies if they type in dash L, you need to be able to list the cows. So you need to list something. So I don't know. Let's just write that down. So if there's a dash L, list all the cows. All right. And then what else is next? It says, I'm going to look at this one because this one also has a flag. So dash N. Well, if it's dash N, so elif sys.argv1 equals dash N, then what am I going to do? It says I'm going to print out the message using the specified cow. So print out message using specified cow. And if it's neither of these, you know, then I don't know. I guess let's say if it's none of these, then maybe we'll do something else. So else seems like you just print out a message using the default cow. So you're going to have to use the arguments in the command line to do different things. Does that make sense? Okay. I think that, there's some functions here that it was saying that you can use to make it easier because, I mean, of course, for dash L, um, it'll make it easy if you've got a list cow function. Um, and of course, it's a list of cow objects. Cow objects meaning these objects that you made in the cow class. So your cow class, well, I think that it's got, I don't know where the file is. I don't know. Is it in here? I don't know if you, I don't know if you actually provided that. I don't think you provided it. So, we can actually do this. I'm not going to make it, but I'll just, kind of generally go over it. You know, so if I say like, class, I don't know what the syntax is. Class, I'll just say hat. I can't remember. We're gonna have so we're gonna have an initializer. So of course you use this syntax to actually like initialize something or to initialize a function. So within your class, you'll have functions, as you guys have discussed in class. And for example, um, you'll give it, you'll give it like stuff like this. So you'll use this self variable to specify that in this case, my cat, if I were to use this, let's say I specified, okay, I'm going to make a cat here. This cat, specifically this one, has a name and it might be specified by the name that I give it. So if I name it Bob, this cat will be referenced. If you try and find its name, like if I say define get name self, I can, return self.name. And when I do this, if I were to like make this specific cat, if I were to call its name, it would return whatever I had initialized it with. And so that's what you're going to want to do. Which again, I don't know how much has been covered in class, but I assume that you've gone over these classes a little bit. But you need to make each one of these. And I mean, I've kind of done the first two functions for you. But I mean, you see how simple it is. Really, you just have to set things and get things. And in this case, I think since the hyper generator is given to you, okay. Yeah, so if you guys have like a good idea of what you need to do for the cow part, once you do that, and then you do the get cows function, it will, what the get cows function will do. So, get cows, you're going to want to set it to be like an array or cow array. So you're going to say cow array, and then it'll be get cows, and this will give you an array of the cows. And I don't remember exactly, and we can look specifically at what type it is, but it just seems to be, you know, the image, it gives you the cow like as an object, and then it specifies that that cow has. I don't know what just happened. Yeah, so you'll just need to use the get image function to actually like go through this array and then access that specific image. Does that make sense? Sorry, I don't know what happened to my microphone.